I was lying in the ICU, staring at the ceiling tiles, when my phone vibrated under my pillow. My hands were shaking from the IV meds, but I managed to pull it out. Marlene was calling. "Dad, listen, Curtis's birthday is tonight. You have to come help." He bought 20 steaks. I blinked at the heart monitor like maybe it could answer for me. "Marlene, I'm in intensive care." She huffed. "You always make it sound worse than it is." Right there, as she talked over my weak breathing, I thought about something I always say to the people who listen to my stories. Subscribe. Hit the like button. And tell me in the comments how old you are and where you're watching from. For you, it's just a small thing. But for me, it's the reason I keep telling these stories. Because in real life, nobody listens. "Marlene," I whispered. "The doctor said I had a cardiac episode." "So? You're talking. They can discharge you early. Just get here. Don't ruin the party." Even the nurse, Opal, paused at the foot of my bed like, did she really just say that? "I can't even stand," I said. "Well then maybe staying with us isn't a good idea anymore. I can't keep babysitting you, Dad." Babysitting. That word hit harder than the heart attack. Before I could respond, she hung up. Opal clicked her pen and muttered, "If she wants burgers that bad, she can grill them herself." I almost laughed, but my chest hurt. All I knew was this: if Marlene wanted me gone that badly, she was going to regret how she did it. Because the next morning, the doctor told me something she never expected me to hear, something that changed everything. The next morning, the sunlight leaked through the blinds in thin, judgmental stripes. I was sipping hospital coffee, if you can call that beige liquid coffee, when Dr. Aldridge stepped in. Tall, calm, with a beard that looked like it was permanently 5 minutes too long. "Mr. Kincaid," he said, checking my chart. "You're lucky you came in when you did." "I didn't come in," I said. "I collapsed on my daughter's kitchen floor." She thought I was being dramatic. He froze mid-page flip. "She didn't call the ambulance?" "No." Curtis stepped over me to get a soda. Even he had to sit down for that one. Then he said the sentence that tightened something deep in my chest, but not in a medical way. "You can't live in a stressful environment anymore. One more episode like this, and you won't get a second chance. You need a calm home, a stable routine, and absolutely no physical strain." I stared at him. Calm home? Stable routine? My daughter's house had all the calm of a chicken running through a marching band. I tried to joke, because that's what old men do when reality kicks them in the knees. "Doc, at their place, I sleep next to the laundry room. Every morning at 6, the dryer starts spinning like I'm trapped in a jet engine." He actually laughed and almost spit his coffee when I added, "And Curtis folds clothes like he's punishing them for past mistakes." But then the seriousness returned. "You can't go back there. Not if you want to live." Those words hit me harder than anything Marlene had said. Not because of fear, but because suddenly I saw the truth. I wasn't just unwanted. I was unsafe around them. The nurse, Opal, appeared behind him and chimed in. "If your daughter wants a grill master so badly, tell her to buy a rotisserie chicken and call it gourmet." I snorted so hard my oxygen line wiggled, but inside, something deeper shifted. For the first time in a long time, I felt a quiet spark of determination. If they wanted me gone, fine. But I wasn't leaving like a burden. I had too many things tied to that house, too many things in my name, and too many favors I'd done that nobody remembered. Let them laugh now, because in just a few days, I'd walk out of that hospital with strength they didn't expect, and knowledge they wished I never had. When they finally moved me out of ICU to a regular room, they wheeled me past a waiting area, where 2 elderly men were arguing over whether the hospital pudding tasted like old wallpaper or regret. I almost asked for a cup just to settle the debate, but the nurse kept pushing the wheelchair. My new room had a window overlooking the parking lot. The view wasn't much, but at least the cars didn't yell at me for ruining birthday parties. Opal came in with my lunch tray, something green, pretending to be vegetables. She looked at it, then at me. "Don't worry, Mr. Kincaid. If it tries to crawl off the plate, I'll file a report." She always knew when I needed a laugh. But when she left, the silence in the room felt heavy. I stared at the edge of the blanket. thinking about Marlenemy little girl with crooked pigtails, who once cried because I missed her school play by 10 minutes. How did that child grow into someone who could hang up on me in a hospital bed? I closed my eyes and whispered to myself. Lorraine would have known what to say. My late wife always had a way of grounding me. She'd touch my shoulder and say, Silas, don't let people push you into being small. And I had become small. So small that Marlene didn't even see me anymore. A knock interrupted my thoughts. A hospital volunteer peeked in, an elderly man with oversized glasses and the posture of a man who had fought gravity for decades. His name tag read Rufus. You up for a chat? He asked cheerfully. I shrugged. As long as you're not here to sell me extended warranty. He cackled so loudly the nurse down the hall yelled, Rufus, sit down before you explode a lung. He plopped into the chair. So what put you here? I explained the collapse, the stress. The daughter. Demanding barbecue duty from an ICU patient. Rufus listened carefully, shaking his head. Then he leaned in and whispered, Let me tell you something. Kids these days treat their parents like old microwave souseful until they start making weird noises. I burst out laughing so hard, the heart monitor beeped like it was joining in. But then he added something that wasn't funny at all. You gave them everything, but you forgot to keep something for yourself. His words hit deeper than the heart attack. That night, in the dim hospital light, I made a promise to myself. I wasn't going back begging for space in my own daughter's house. I wasn't going to be spoken to like a burden ever again. And I wasn't going to let them walk all over me. Especially not when so much in that household quietly depended on me. Because hidden in a drawer back at their house was a folder Marlene never thought I'd remember. And once I returned home, that folder would be the first thing I reached for. Discharge day finally came, though the hospital clearly didn't trust me to walk more than 5 feet without supervision. Opal handed me the release papers and said, If your daughter wants you to grill again, tell her the only thing you're flipping now is channels. Doctor's orders. I replied, tapping my chest dramatically. She winked. And mine. A volunteer wheeled me outside. The air felt different, lighter, sharper. Maybe because nobody was calling me dramatic for breathing wrong. I called a taxi. Not Marlene. Not Curtis. I wanted to see how long before she noticed I wasn't begging for forgiveness. The cab driver, a chatty man named Buckley, looked back at me through the mirror. Rough day, sir. Rough decade. I corrected. He nodded like he understood exactly what that meant. I hear you. My son asked me for money last week and said, Dad, don't make it weird. It was $5,000. $5,000. For what? He said investments. Turned out to be a bounce house rental business. I laughed so hard it triggered my cough. When we pulled up to Marlene Street, something felt off. The curtains were closed. The driveway was full. Curtis' truck, Marlene's SUV, plus a car I didn't recognize. I didn't ring the bell. I still had a key, the one they forgot to ask back. Inside, the house smelled like barbecue sauce and expensive candles. Voices floated from the living room. He'll figure it out eventually, Curtis was saying. But if he refuses to leave, we can always speed things up. Speed things up? I froze in the hallway. Then Marlene's voice. Curtis, please. I just want peace. Once he moves out, everything will be calmer. Peace. Calmer. They were talking about me like I was an unwanted roommate and not the man who helped buy this house. I stepped forward, and the floor creaked loudly, because my timing in life is apparently terrible. Silence fell. Curtis emerged first, holding a plate of ribs like a shield. Oh, he said. You're back. Marlene came next, eyes wide. Dad, why didn't you call? We could have picked me up. I finished for her. Help me inside. Thrown a parade. Curtis muttered. No need to be sarcastic. I stared at him. Sir, I almost died. You step over socks like they're landmines. You stepped over me. He opened his mouth, and then, right on cue, the family dog, Truffle, trotted over and dropped a squeaky toy on my shoe. A rubber chicken. It let out the saddest squeak in history. I leaned down and whispered, At least you missed me. And behind me, in the tight, uneasy silence, a thought flashed bright and sharp. They had no idea I remembered the folder. They had no idea what was in it. And they had no idea how quickly the balance in this house was about to shift. Because that night, I went straight to the drawer, and what I found inside didn't just change the situation, It blew it wide open. I waited until everyone went to bed, or at least pretended to. The house felt different at night, like it finally exhaled when the people stopped talking. The refrigerator hummed, the old pipes groaned, and the dog snored like a tractor with asthma. Perfect cover. I slipped into the little office room, the one Marlene called Curtis' sanctuary, though the only thing he sanctified in there was fantasy football. Bottom drawer. Left side. I remembered exactly where I had put the folder months ago, back when I still believed they cared. My hands trembled, but not from weakness this time. Inside was the thick stack of papers I'd kept quiet about, the mortgage documents, the house deed, the insurance policies, everything with my name still on it. When Marlene and Curtis bought this home, they couldn't afford it without my help. So I co-signed. And after Lorraine died, I paid down half the principal because I didn't want my daughter to drown in debt. They never refinanced. They never took my name off. Because why would they? It was easier to forget the man who made their life possible. I sat down slowly, feeling the weight of the papers on my lap. This house was technically as much mine as theirs. Just then, the door cracked open and a sleepy voice whispered, "Grandpa?" It was Ella, my granddaughter, 7 years old, wearing pajamas covered in planets. She rubbed her eyes and pointed to the folder. "Mommy said you were leaving." I swallowed hard. "Did she now?" "She said you make everything stressful." Then she climbed into my lap like it was the most natural thing in the world and added, "But I like when you're here." I hugged her gently, careful not to press on the spot where the 4 bruised me. "Ella, sweetheart, do you know what stressful means?" She nodded confidently. "It means Mommy yells at Daddy because he never puts the spoons back in the right drawer." I nearly burst out laughing and had to bury my face in her hair to hide it. Then she whispered something so honest it pierced straight through me. "I don't want you to go." I kissed her forehead. "And I'm not going anywhere, not yet." She sleepily poked the folder. "What's that?" "Just grown-up papers," I said. "But important ones." "Important like my science project?" "Yes, very important, but with fewer glitter explosions." She nodded, satisfied, and wandered back toward her room, stopping halfway to wave at me like a tiny, half-awake astronaut. When she left, I turned back to the documents, and for the first time in months, I felt something shift. Control. Not revenge. Not anger. Just the quiet realization that I wasn't powerless. And if Marlene wanted me gone, she was about to learn something she should have never forgotten. You don't throw out the person whose name is on your roof. And the next morning, I made sure they learned it the hard way. By morning, I'd slept maybe an hour. Not because of the heart, not because of pain, but because my mind hadn't felt this alive in years. All night, I stared at those papers like they were a secret weapon wrapped in stapled yellow edges. At breakfast, the house was already buzzing. Curtis was burning toast. The man could ruin bread with the same enthusiasm he ruined every DIY project he ever touched. The smoke alarm chirped like it was also tired of him. Marlene stood at the counter scrolling through her phone, looking irritated at something, probably a salad recipe that involved too much chopping. She didn't look at me when I walked in. She just said, "Dad, we need to talk." I sat down calmly. "You're right. We do." She blinked, probably confused I wasn't limping dramatically or coughing for sympathy. "We've been thinking," she began, folding her arms. "It might be best if you found your own place. Somewhere quiet. Less chaotic." "Ah," I said. "A peaceful exile." Curtis set down the charred toast. "It's not exile, Silas. Just independence. The kind you encourage by kicking someone out." I asked. He shrugged. "You're making it emotional." Before I could reply, Truffle, the dog, trotted over and dropped the rubber chicken toy at my feet again. It squeaked like it was reluctantly agreeing with me. I leaned down. At least someone in this house respects me. Marlene sighed dramatically. Funny how she accused me of that. "Dad, we can help you find a small rental. Something affordable." I took a long sip of my coffee. "Affordable. Yes. Let's talk about that." They both froze. "See," I continued lightly. "I was going through some things last night. Important papers. Mortgage papers. Insurance papers. Deeds." Curtis' eyebrows shot up so fast it looked like they tried to jump off his forehead. Marlene's phone slipped out of her hand and clattered on the countertop. Then I laid the folder gently on the table, not slamming it, not making a scene, just placing it there like a polite little bomb. Marlene whispered, "Dad, what are you doing?" I opened the first page. "Refreshing your memory." Curtis nervously picked up the toast, ate it, made a face, and put it back. The man didn't even know how to panic properly. Silas, he said quietly, we thought you took your name off everything. Oh, I know, I said. Because you never checked. Why would you? Old Dad is supposed to fade politely into the background, not read legal documents. Marlene swallowed hard. So what does this mean? I leaned back in my chair, enjoying the rare feeling of oxygen in my lungs without someone telling me I'm being dramatic. It means, I said, you don't get to throw me out of a house I technically own. Curtis looked at Marlene. Marlene looked at me. The dog looked proud. And then I added, very calmly, in fact, if anyone should be considering alternative housing, it isn't me. The room went silent. Even the smoke alarm decided it had heard enough. And that's when the panic truly began, especially after I made one phone call that changed everything for them. I let the silence hang just long enough for both of them to sweat. Marlene looked like someone had unplugged her brain from maintenance. Curtis chewed the same corner of burnt toast over and over like it contained answers if he gnawed hard enough. Then I pulled out my phone. Who are you calling? Marlene asked, voice tight. Someone who understands property law better than Curtis understands grilled meat? I said. Curtis stiffened. Are you calling a lawyer? No, I said, dialing. I'm calling the bank. If oxygen had weight, that room would have collapsed under it. Marlene whispered, Dad, you wouldn't. Oh, I absolutely would. I said, my thumb hovering over the call button. This is my house too, remember? And I'm very curious about a few things. Like why nobody told me about the missed payment in March. Curtis choked on air. That was a mistake. That was the bank's fault. Well, technically, maybe I don't know. Truffle the dog took one look at Curtis, sighed like even he'd lost respect, and walked out of the kitchen. Marlene rushed to me, grabbing my arm. Dad, please, don't do this. We're already under stress. Under stress. I raised an eyebrow. Honey, I had a heart attack. A literal, medically verified one. She winced. I know, but everything is just complicated. Funny, I said, because last week you told me the only complicated thing in this house was keeping me out of the way. Curtis interrupted. Silas, come on. We all said things we didn't mean. Tempers were high. I looked at him. You told Marlene I was a financial deadweight. His eyes widened so far they nearly clicked. She told you that. I blinked slowly. Curtis, you were yelling. The house has thin walls. He swallowed. Look, maybe we should calm down. Oh, I'm calm, I said. Calmer than your credit score. Marlene groaned into her hands. I finally put the phone down. I never actually pressed call and folded my arms. Here's how this is going to work, I said. I'm not leaving this house. Not yet. Not until I decide it's best for me. And if either of you tries to pressure me again, I will make that call. And believe me, the bank will be thrilled to speak with the one person still paying attention. Curtis nodded so fast he looked like a bobblehead on sale. Marlene sat down slowly, like her legs had just discovered gravity. But beneath the tension, something unexpected hit me. I wasn't doing this out of revenge. Not fully. A part of me was still that father who raised her, who held her hand through nightmares, who carried her to bed after she fell asleep on the couch. And that part whispered, she must be hurting to behave like this. Or maybe she'd forgotten who I was. Still, I didn't let my face soften. Not yet. Because right then, right in the middle of that emotional standoff, the doorbell rang. Curtis froze. Who's that? I smiled slowly. Oh, that would be the person I did call this morning. Their jaws dropped, because standing on the front porch was someone they never expected to see, and what she said next turned the whole house upside down. Curtis tiptoed to the front door like a man approaching a wild animal. Marlene followed him, whispering, Did he call the bank? Did he call the police? Did he call? Who would he call? I stayed sitting at the kitchen table, hands folded, enjoying the show. The door creaked open, and there she stood, my late wife's sister, Aunt Geneva. Short, fierce, 72, and built entirely from opinions and orthopedic shoes. She wore her usual outfit, a giant floral blouse that could camouflage her in a botanical garden, and sunglasses large enough to receive satellite signals. Where is he? She demanded without stepping inside. Curtis stuttered, W.H.U. Who? She snapped. Silas. The only adult in this house. I raised my hand from the kitchen doorway. Hello, Geneva. She stormed in like a legal notice with legs and grabbed my shoulders. Are you all right? I got your message. You said you were kicked out while recovering from a near-death experience? I drove here going 57 miles an hour. I haven't gone that fast since '92. Marlene closed her eyes, already defeated. Geneva, it's not like that, she tried. Oh, Geneva turned slowly, dramatically, like a courtroom judge about to sentence somebody. Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like that. Curtis attempted charm. It failed. Well, we were just, discussing living arrangements. Geneva barked a laugh so loud the dog ran behind the sofa. Oh please, she said. You two couldn't arrange a sock drawer, let alone a living situation. I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing. Then she pointed at them both with a trembling but deadly accurate finger. You should be ashamed. Absolutely ashamed. Your father is recovering from a heart attack, and you're tossing him out like expired yogurt. I sank a little lower in my chair. Geneva, let's keep the dairy products out of it. No, she barked. They need to hear this. Marlene's eyes filled with tears. Real ones. Not the crocodile kind. Mom would be disappointed, Geneva added softly. And that hit harder than anything I could have said. The room fell silent. I watched my daughter's face crumble. First confusion, then fear, then something I hadn't seen in years. Remorse. Marlene, I said gently, breaking the tension, I don't want a war. I don't want to punish you. But I won't be treated like I'm disposable. She burst into tears and sat beside me. Dad, I didn't realize how bad it looked. I got overwhelmed. Work, Curtis, the house, everything. Curtis raised a hand. Hey, why did I get singled out in that list? Geneva silenced him with one glare. The man physically shrank. Marlene wiped her eyes. Dad, I'm sorry. Truly, I didn't mean to hurt you. I was scared. I didn't know how to handle everything. I took a slow breath. My chest still ached, but for the first time, not from heartbreak. And just as things seemed to settle, Aunt Geneva leaned over to me and whispered loudly, too loudly. Silas, I brought my overnight back. I'm staying with you to supervise. The look on Curtis' face was priceless, like someone had told him his favorite chair was being recalled for safety concerns. And that visit, that was only the beginning of the chaos she'd unleash in this household. And the moment Marlene finally saw what she'd done, Aunt Geneva unpacked like she was planning to occupy the house for the next presidential term. She marched into the guest room, formerly my room, opened her suitcase, and began unloading things I didn't even know regular civilians owned. A full-size humidifier, 2 heating pads, a jar labeled Muscle Rescue Cream that smelled like Viking peppermint, and for reasons unknown, binoculars. Curtis whispered to me, Why does she need binoculars? I whispered back, to judge the neighbors more efficiently. By afternoon, the house had transformed into Geneva's personal command center. She had opinions about everything. Curtis, that paint color makes the wall look like it needs more sleep. Marlene, dear, you call this a clean kitchen? I've seen cleaner crime scenes on TV. Silas, drink water. You're dehydrated. Your skin sounds dry when you blink. The woman was relentless. But something strange began happening. Marlene didn't snap back. She didn't get defensive. She listened. For the first time in years, she slowed down enough to actually look at me, to see me sitting at the table, tired, bruised, and still trying to smile. That evening, while Curtis hid in the garage pretending to reorganize the tool shelf for the 5th time, Marlene sat across from me. Dad, she said quietly, I need to tell you something. I closed the folder in front of me. Go ahead. She fiddled with her sleeve, like she used to as a kid before admitting she broke a window. I didn't push you away because I don't love you, she began. I pushed because I didn't know how to handle seeing you weak. You've always been the strong one, the one who fixed everything. And when you collapsed in the kitchen, I panicked. I didn't want to admit you could actually disappear. The room softened around her words. I took a long breath. Marlene, you don't have to fix everything. You just have to care. She wiped a tear. I do care. I've just been so overwhelmed. Work, the bills, Curtis being. Curtis. From the garage, something crashed loudly. Geneva shouted, Curtis. If you broke something else, I swear. We both sighed at the same time. For the first time in months, it felt like old times. Then Marlene's voice trembled. Dad, are you going to leave? Move out. I looked at her, not angry, not triumphant, just honest. I'll leave, I said softly. When I know you want me to stay because you love me. Not because you feel guilty. Tears filled her eyes again. I want you to stay, she whispered. Not out of guilt. Out of love. And because I nearly lost you. And I can't live with myself knowing the last thing I told you was, she choked on the memory, that I was done babysitting you. I reached across the table and patted her hand. For the record, I said gently, I'm probably the easiest person in this house to babysit. Right then, Geneva appeared in the doorway holding a frying pan. Dinner's ready. And don't worry, Curtis only slightly ruined part of it. We all burst out laughing. Even Truffle barked, like he had perfect comedic timing. But as we sat down to eat, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Real peace. Only one part remained. The final decision I still had to make, for my sake and theirs. Dinner smelled good, shockingly good, considering Curtis had been allowed within 5 feet of a stove. We sat together, me, Marlene, Curtis, Aunt Geneva, and little Ella, around the table like a family that hadn't fallen apart a week earlier. The air felt warm, soft, safe. Even Geneva behaved. Well, mostly. She only critiqued the mashed potatoes twice. Halfway through the meal, Marlene cleared her throat. Dad, we've been talking. We want you to stay here. For good. And not because of guilt anymore. Because this is your home, too. I smiled, truly smiled, for the first time in days. I appreciate that, I said. More than you know. Curtis nodded proudly like he helped build the sentence. But, I added gently, I can't stay. Silence fell so deep, you could hear Truffle swallow. Marlene whispered, Dad, why? I folded my napkin slowly. Then I reached into my pocket and placed something on the table. A small, silver key. Marlene frowned. What is that? The key, I said softly, to my new house. Her eyes widened. Curtis' jaw dropped so far it nearly hit the casserole. Even Geneva paused mid-chew. You bought a house? Marlene whispered. Not bought. I corrected. Claimed. I took a breath. Remember that little cabin your mother loved? The one near Lake Foster? The one we always said we'd fix up someday. Marlene's eyes filled instantly. That place hasn't been touched in years. I went through the documents last night. I continued. It's still in my name. All of it. Lorraine wanted it to be our place when we retired. A quiet place. I felt my chest tighten, but not from pain. From memory. So, I said, I'm going there. Not out of anger. Not because you pushed me away. But because I realized something in that hospital bed. Everyone leaned in. I don't want my last years to be spent surviving people. I want to spend them living. A tear slid down Marlene's cheek. Dad, I don't want to lose you. You're not losing me, I said, reaching for her hand. You're getting a version of me who finally does something for himself. Then I smiled. And I'm only 40 minutes away. You can visit. Frequently. Preferably without bringing Curtis cooking. Curtis lifted his fork defensively. I only burned one chicken, Curtis, Geneva said. You once melted a measuring cup. He sank back down. Ella climbed into my lap. Grandpa, can I come to the cabin? I hugged her tightly. Anytime, Starlight. You'll help me plant tomatoes. And can Mommy and Daddy come too? I took Marlene's hand again. When they come because they want to, I said. Not because they think they have to. Marlene nodded, crying and smiling at the same time. I'll earn that, Dad. I promise. Then Geneva sniffed loudly. Well, some of us knew Silas always had a dramatic streak, but this is better than cable television. We all burst out laughing. The next morning, I packed my small suitcase. Curtis carried it to the car. Carefully, quietly. Marlene hugged me like she did when she was 8. Long, tight, trembling. And as I drove away, the sunrise washed the road gold. The cabin was waiting. A new beginning. A peaceful life, finally chosen, not forced. And the greatest twist? A week later, Marlene and Curtis came to visit with Ella, and they brought dinner. Curtis didn't cook it. That alone was the happiest ending an old man could ever ask for.